Question number 32 on the reading portion of College Board's Test 4. In passage 1, so notice this is only passage 1, Burke indicates that a contract between a person and society differs from other contracts mainly in its. So what's the difference between a person and society, the government? The person and government differs from other contracts. Well, I remember in passage 1, he says, line 17, society is indeed a contract. Subordinate or lower contracts for objects of mere occasional interest may be dissolved at pleasure. But, so here's the reversal, but the state ought not to be considered as a partnership agreement with, just trade and business. And we go line 24. It is, the government is to be looked on with other reverence, because it is not a partnership in things subservient only to the gross animal instincts and existence. So he says that a contract between a person and society is much more important than other contracts of other subordinate lowly concerns. Mainly in its, what's the difference? Brevity and prominence. Oh, this is going to be a tough vocab one. Brevity. What does brevity mean? Brevity means how short, when you have brevity, you could say a speech or a toast was marked by its brevity. It means it was short. It was sweet to the point. I don't think he ever talks that a contract between a person and society is short, whatever that means. Either it's succinctly defined or it's short in its lifespan. And prominence. This is a good one. This is a good bad answer, because a lot of people are like, I have no idea what brevity means, but they're like, prominence. Yeah, a contract between a person and society is more prominent because it's higher up than this subservient, subordinate contract. So therefore, the contract between a person and society is prominent, but you don't realize what brevity means, which means shortness, briefness. So that can't be the answer. Just because, if you don't know what a word means, you can't possibly get rid of it or pick it. Think of it that way. If you don't know what a word means, you can't get rid of it. And you also can't pick it. So let's assume that we didn't know what brevity meant, just to show how the logic would have played out by using a very conservative way of going through these answers. We think prominence is good, but we don't know what brevity means. So let's leave it. A contract between a person and society differs from other contracts mainly in its complexity and rigidity. Does he ever say that the relationship between a person and society is complex? And you might say, yes, it is complex, George. It's infinitely complex. But does he say that? Does he ever say, well, the contract between people and society is very complicated? He doesn't. He doesn't actually get into what makes it a contract in the first place. However, rigidity. What does rigidity mean? It means that it's taut, it's strong, it's unable to be bent or manipulated. Complexity and rigidity. Is it rigid? You might think, well, a relationship between a person and society is rigid. It's very structured, and that's the way it works. But rigidity here means that it's inflexible. And I'm not liking the fact that he's saying that we have to say that Burke said that society, the relationship between a person and society is complex. Even though you might think it's complex, and maybe objectively it is complex, does Burke ever say that the relationship between a person and society, this contract is complex? I don't know. Well, let's see. Burke indicates that a contract between a person and society differs from other contracts, mainly in its precision and usefulness. Does he ever say that it's precise? We don't actually know what the relationship is between the government and and its people. He never once brings up, this is what a government does, this is what people do. That's what a contract typically says. It's what do people need to do in order to fulfill this agreement. I don't see any precision about exactly what should be there, and usefulness. Does he ever say it's useful? I guess we can imply that it's useful, that's why government exists, but he doesn't say that. Burke indicates that a contract between a person and society differs, mainly in its seriousness. Is it serious? Yes, it's very serious. He says it. He says it's a partnership in all science, all art, every virtue, and all perfection. To talk about something being serious, to uphold the foundations of all civilization, I would argue it's pretty serious. And permanence, yes. This is something that cannot be dissolved at mere pleasure. It's not something that you can just say, I don't want it anymore. You can't say, I don't want to be a citizen anymore of the country. It's very hard at the very least. Or you can't be a citizen of a country and say, I don't want to follow that rule. So, and furthermore, he says, this thing cannot be fulfilled or satisfied in one generation. It has to be satisfied over the course of many, many generations. And it rests on the dead, the living, and the unborn. So I would consider that, in terms of all time past as well as all time in the future, to be pretty permanent. You have to ask yourself then, say that you're down between like A and D or another one in D. you have to ask yourself, okay, I don't know what brevity means for A, but does he say a contract between a person and society is serious? Yes, it's very serious. He says it's the most important contract that we can make. He says it's the thing that we have to hold up with reverence. We have to treat it and uphold it, exalt it. That's serious. And is it permanent? Yes, because he says that it exists from all past people and all future people. So even though we don't know what brevity, it's assumed you don't know what brevity means. That doesn't mean short or brief. We have this thing, it's like prominence. Yeah, it's prominent, but do we know that it's brief? I don't know. But is the contract serious and permanent? Yes. So D, in a way, is irrefutable. You can't prove it wrong. When you start thinking about this test in terms of answer choices that can't be proven wrong are the right answers, that's when you start becoming a lot more careful and a lot smarter about how you deal with the test and the answer choices. And your score will go up as a result. I really do believe that just thinking about this test differently, by being defensive instead of aggressive, by looking and trying to find faults with things rather than giving it the benefit of the doubt, by realizing that the right answers can't be proven wrong rather than you believing that it is the right answer, that's going to be the best, safest way to approach this test. I really mean it. Very hard question 32 because of the vocab play in it, and that sometimes you will encounter a question you don't know what it means. Nonetheless, the one that's irrefutable, the one that's impossible to be proven wrong, is going to be D. Answer 32, D.